What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at Tonalaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of Tonalaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Tonalaw. If you're an attorney and you're looking for a trusted partner in New York personal injury referrals, Tonalaw has been doing this since 2001. We're the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At Tonalaw, we pay legal fee participation, referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the Tonalaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONALAW or visit us at tonalaw.com. If you're calling because you heard us on the podcast, just mention Lead Counsel when you make the referral, and they will get you on the phone with me. Special episode today. We have a roundtable of what I like to call succession planning experts. These are the gurus of gurus. So we're going to jump right in because this is going to be a multi-part series. We're going to break them down into 30-minute segments with Jonathan Hawkins, Daniel Feiman, Ed Alexander. You guys can just do a quick brief intro. John, you hit it. Tell them first who you are.
Tom, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Welcome.
Jonathan Hawkins. I'm the founding attorney of law firm GC. We're a law firm here based in Atlanta. We represent lawyers and law firms, and one of the things we do is succession planning.
Awesome. Daniel, you're up next, man.
Daniel Feiman, founder of Build It Backwards, which no one understands. I'm the only non-lawyer here, but many of my clients are, and I grew up with 6 of them.
Excellent. Thank you. Ed.
Tom, I'm Ed Alexander. I have a corporate transactional practice focusing mostly on law firm succession planning, exits, and partnerships. And my firm is Alexander Business Law here in Orlando, Florida.
Awesome. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome. This idea came to me one day early in the morning. I was listening to a podcast on succession planning. This has been a hot button topic with all the mergers and acquisitions going on in the law space. And then a buddy of mine went on a different forum that we belong to, and he was like, this is all nonsense. No one ever exits their practices alive with money, and most lawyers have no idea what they're doing. So I was like, let's put the noise to bed. Okay. So I know the 3 of you very well. Jonathan, you're handling transactional stuff for me, but you also do a significant amount of this. Daniel has been my succession planning kind of Sherpa. If he can ever pin me down into the weekly cadence I'm supposed to do, we're actually going to get it finished. My goal is to have a succession plan in place by the end of the year, hopefully. So, and then Ed, who's a good friend of mine through Atticus, has done succession planning for friends of mine. You know, there's the legal component and then there's the planning component. And I know you guys probably do all 3 other than Daniel, who is not the legal end of it. He'll do the planning, and then he'll also bring in legal teams like you guys. So let's jump right in because I'm going to keep this on a tight format. One, the whole theme of this first episode is why do law firms and lawyers fail at succession planning? Okay. And the thought process is we see in this profession more than any other profession, the cobbler who has his kids have no shoes. So the first question I would ask you guys is, what do you see as why is our profession so far behind in the terms of succession planning and exiting with, cashing out the blood, sweat, and tears you've dumped into building a law practice?
All right. So I think the first thing is, for me anyway, it's mindset, right? I think the key here is a lot of lawyers have the hero mentality and, they're the center of the practice. They are the practice. They do everything for the practice. And the thought that somebody else could step in and do it for them, with them, whatever, is one of the roadblocks that we see all the time here. I'm working with somebody right now who's 76 and is still talking about how he's not sure when he's going to retire, right? I mean, that in and of itself tells you the mindset there about I'm going to live forever and I'm going to practice forever.
Has anybody ever hung up a picture of the Grim Reaper in their office? Because you really should, because that's when you're going to retire. Like, Jonathan, you had something to say.
I'll answer the question, but I want to take a step back. So succession planning can mean a lot of different things. And in the law, there's a lot of different things that all get sort of pushed into that category. For example, for solos or for solely owned firms, there's what I call the hit by the bus plan, which is, something happens to you, you need a backup plan. Some people call that succession planning. Then there's the, hey, I'm going to sell the practice either to a third party or internally. And you've got that too. And sort of, you got two different things to think about. But back to the original question, I agree with Ed. Mindset's a big one. I think another one is they haven't really seen it done, or they don't think it can be done. I think a lot of times lawyers are so damn busy lawyering. They're like, yeah, I'll get to that one day. And they wake up and they're 76. And they're like, yeah, I meant to get to that. And it's that's part of it too. And then the last thing I'll say that I see a lot, I'd be curious what Daniel sees on this, is many lawyers have spent all their money all of it and they can't retire and they can't get out of it. So that's another issue that I've seen a lot of.
That's terrifying. That's terrifying. Daniel.
All right. I'm going to pick up what Jonathan started with. Succession is defined in about 12 different ways, and I find it very interesting. One of the boards I sit on is the board of the Exit Planning Institute, the Orange County chapter, the largest in the country. And they use the term succession. One of the reasons that I wrote the book on succession planning systems is because we separate succession, transition, and exit planning, or the acronym I put together, STEP. Succession is the holistic succession of the firm. It's how you position it to be future-proofed. Transition is when the founder or senior partners plan to exit at some point. The exit planning process is completely separate from each of those. And I think the problem that too many law firms have that I see is either they think they're going to live forever, as Ed said, or they're overwhelmed by not having a process in hand that they can follow because it's not their core competency.
Yeah, you just nailed it. I mean, as you just said this, you know me long enough. My eyes just glazed over and I'm like, oh my God, like you and I got to sit down. I know I owe you a call. I was sick as a dog the last round. I get it. I get it. Is there a methodology the three of you guys employ to kind of help people distinguish between the phases you just said? Like somebody mentioned, some coach guru I found online was mentioning, like, do you even know your out number? Right. And I think what he was referring to is income producing net worth assets scenario, right? Your financials, which, do you know your out number? What do you think you need is the out number? My out number just goes up because that's how my brain works, like a taxi meter. But you got to break it down for us. Like you already overwhelmed me. We're not even 10 minutes into the podcast yet, right? Like, do you guys deploy some type of methodology to help the layman figure this out?
Daniel, I know you've got something.
Absolutely. I mean, that's such a softball, Tom. The methodology that I've developed with and employed in over 100 organizations across the country is literally what we call the 30 Secrets to Leadership Development. It's a step-by-step process broken down into 5 phases that walks a firm, a senior partner, the leadership team, the managing partner through the process. It makes things simpler because it's a proven roadmap. It has every tool that you need to assess every element of the firm, plus the accountability piece, plus the KPIs, plus the metrics. It is literally a step-by-step roadmap that I believe in because I've seen it work in so many firms.
How about you guys? How about Ed and John? How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so mine is more of a discovery process, right? So I'm taking clients through that overall, what is your goal, talking them through what the structure of the firm is currently. When we're looking at a firm and somebody's coming to us, I got to figure out how much time they have left. We want to figure out who is in place currently, or are we looking at bringing people on? And then obviously extending that period of time. What's the financial metrics of the firm? Is it going to actually support this type of, or do we have to do something else to get succession on board? The number one piece for me is that what is the goal of the owner? And number two, I want to know, what does the owner plan to do once they implement it. Right? Because I've seen so many times the owner will just completely crater the plan if they don't see a future that doesn't involve them running their firm.
You guys are going to leave me depressed after this. Jonathan, how about you?
So, the things I'll add, the first thing I'll say is I'm not an operational person. So, Daniel probably is more in the operations than I am. So, I'm not going to go with a firm and how to set up everything within the firm. I'm more on the back end. And I sort of have a similar process to Ed. I want to know, what are the goals? The other thing is, what is the structure of the firm? A solely owned firm with maybe a team is very different than a firm that has 4 or 5 partners. And the approach you're going to take in those different scenarios is different. And again, you got to know what the person wants, or if it's a firm, what do they want? The thing I see a lot of nowadays is at bigger firms, they have, multiple partners, different generations. And their problem is the younger generation is looking at, well, I'm going to have to pay for them and they're going to be gone. And how are we going to replace the production? How am I going to afford this? And so a big piece of it too is, the affordability and sort of convincing the younger folks that, this is a good investment. And so there's a psychological component as well.
It's an excellent point, Jonathan, because when you look at the numbers, right? First off, we have a lot of associates who look at the lifestyle that's been led by the senior or the founders, and they say, yeah, I don't want that lifestyle. So you've got to really change the firm to make it into something that they want, or go out and find somebody who wants that lifestyle, which is a big undertaking, of course.
Yeah, I heard somebody say that the younger generation, they want all the trappings, but they don't want what it takes to get there. And there's a big educational process going on to try to bridge that disconnect. It's wild. And a lot of it is since COVID, right? A lot of it is just, there was a big societal shift. So
the 4 of us here are boomers, and maybe Jonathan's an X. I don't know. So
the
one thing I would be careful about is, I think that the firm should be run as a business, right? And when somebody who's coming in as an associate, maybe coming in to be part of the succession plan, or maybe a junior partner, whatever they are, if the firm isn't run as a business, that's going to be the lifestyle problem there. So sorry, I cut you off, Jonathan.
Gotcha.
I was just going to piggyback on what Tom said. I have people come to me all the time. They say, I have a senior associate that wants equity. That's how they lead the call. And then I always ask, are you sure they want equity, or do they just want the title? And then I say, go ask them these questions. If you're equity, you're risk, you get paid last, you got to buy in, all these things. And they come back, a week later and say, I talked to them. They don't want equity. They just want the title,
and more money. They want more
exactly.
money. Yeah. It's crazy. And I think that there's a complete lack of education because of the term partnership and that brass ring mentality that we came up with. Someday you'll be a partner. And those guys never made partners of anybody. They didn't have a partnership track, and they didn't have any business structure at all. There was no marketing machine. There was no systems in place. It was crazy what we came up with in our, I hate to say it this way, in our days when we came up as associates, so.
This podcast is sponsored by Tonalaw. Attorneys, are you looking for a trusted partner for your New York personal injury referrals? Since 2001, Tonalaw has been the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At Tonalaw, we pay legal fee participation to referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the Tonalaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONA-LAW or visit us at tonalaw.com.
So let's do another, kind of lightning round question, which is, you guys have also seen the horror stories, the expensive consequences of inaction and failure to plan. Break it down, like what you guys have seen. Daniel, you had shared a really interesting story with me about a CEO who unwoke up one day. Share those stories for the listeners that are like, I'm in my 30s. What do I care about succession planning?
All right. Well, since you introduced that story, Tom, I'll go ahead and finish up on it. In fact, I just spoke yesterday at a big conference, and I used this as an example. If the CEO, the founder of the firm, doesn't wake up, what's the plan? If one of the managing partners of one of your silos or your multi-silo firm decides they're going to go out on their own, what are you going to do? So I'm going to hook this back to something that both Jonathan and Ed referred to earlier. What's the purpose of your succession plan? Is it so you can move from being a litigator to being the business manager, as it were. And Tom, I know you've gotten out of litigation and more you're running the business side of the firm. Is that your succession? Or are you using the term succession to say, I'm getting out, I want to get out of the business? And then is there someone within the firm who has the willingness, the desire, the bankroll, the mental outlook, going back to Ed's point on mindset, to step up? There's a lot of questions to ask because succession sometimes is internal and sometimes it's got to be external. So you need to look at what is the purpose and use something to figure out what are your most critical roles, what is the probability of them being vacant over what period of time, and how does that tie into your time frame, not just your age, but you could be 35 and a superstar and burned out on the litigation side, and you want to transition to something else. So you've got to look at these various factors.
Ed, horror story. Give me a horror story.
Well, I mean, the ultimate is time, right? So somebody shows up and they want to do succession planning at the last minute, right? And by succession planning, to keep on what Daniel is saying, they want to sell their practice, right? They don't really have any internal infrastructure. And they show up and call you 9 months before, they want to retire. And you're the one delivering that bad news that it's just not going to happen, right?
So then you're looking at a wind down scenario, right? Like just winding it down.
Liquidation is hassle. I mean, it's an enormous hassle because you've got responsibility to clients, you've got responsibility to prior clients and their files. You've got staff that you got to keep it on for a while and keep paying them. I mean, ultimately, liquidation is a negative financial occurrence, right? And even if you gave the practice away and had somebody take over some of those responsibilities for you, you'd be ahead rather than liquidating your practice.
Right. Jonathan?
All right. I've got a bunch of horror stories, but I'll give one that was not my client, so I feel like I can talk about it more. True story, though. So there was I'll call him a solo. He had some of counsel, maybe some contract attorneys and some staff, but he was basically the main attorney. In his 30s, he had $1 million a year practice. Good practice. Great practice. His wife, who was not a lawyer, was the office manager. They had 5 kids, 8 years or younger. They may have had 2 sets of twins. I think they may have had a lake house or something, Everything's great, man. Just great. Then one night on the way home, he gets in a car wreck and dies.
Oh, my God.
No plan in place. Luckily, one of the of counsel was there to sort of help triage a little bit. The wife, well, number one, the entire household income derived from the firm, because the wife worked there too. And in an instant, it just went away. And so there was no real way to monetize any of the cases. It was like an emergency. Let's find home for the cases. I heard he didn't even have life insurance. Just complete disaster. And this guy was healthy. I mean, 30s, healthy, young. And the sudden thing was a car wreck. That's just out of the blue. And so, if it could happen to a 30-year-old healthy person, it can happen to anybody. At a minimum, I always tell people you should start thinking about it and planning about it from day one. Even if you never think you're going to sell, you're going to work till you're 80, still design it from day one with that in mind, just in case.
All right. So
that shows how simple a succession plan could be to protect your family, right? All the guy had to do was have a large enough insurance policy and his family would have been taken care of, right? So succession planning can range from the very simple all the way to the most complicated. And if you're solo and you're sitting here saying, I've got nobody to transfer this to, well, you could do a buy-sell agreement with another solo. And effectively, you're subject to your age and health and all of that. The insurance policy is the driver that gets you to the point where you've got a succession plan. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, if you're in your 30s, right, it's the best time to get life insurance. Go take out $5 million in life insurance. It's going to cost you nothing. It's funny because I hooked up with this insurance broker who was brilliant through a friend of mine from college, where what we did was stages, right? We did staged term with a whole life kicker on the back end. My wife's going to be 90. My daughter's going to be in her 40s, and there'll still be money there. But what it did was during my prime earning years as the prime wage earner, it was high during my peak. And then it would drop off in like 5 or 10 year increments. So that brings up a really good thing because, you're a lawyer, you're planning for everybody else. You got to plan for your business and for your family, your loved ones. But oh my God, like even if you're in your 30s, car accidents happen every day. You step off a curb and you're dead the next minute. So that was really enlightening. I hope anybody that's listening to this says, oh, you know what? I need to take the first steps. Now, let's land the plane, which is from each of you. What is one thing a young lawyer who just opened a practice, or a lawyer in his 57 who doesn't always show up for his succession planning calls, let's say, what's the one thing a lawyer can do this week to get this thing rolling, depending on their ages and what you would recommend? Like a quick win for anybody that's listening. Each of you, give me like, what you think a good quick win would be. I mean, oh, by the way, you've all written books or are in the process of writing books. Dan is on like his 19th book, I think, right, Dan? The most recent one is the succession planning, right?
Yes.
So anybody that's interested, like go on Amazon. I know, Ed, you wrote one that I thought was genius, specific to Florida. And John, do you have a book? I know you're working on a book, but
It'll be out in early October. It's about the
there you
life
go.
cycle of a law firm from early stages to the end.
Awesome. So you guys will share all of those links with me. I'll be happy to put them in the show notes for everybody, because I think it's really important. I'm really bad. I let books pile up, but I tend to pick them up as I need them. But give me the quick wins that might come top of mind. Simple. It could be something simple like if you don't have life insurance, get life insurance. But anybody got any ideas for like a quick win a listener could deploy right away? New practice, old practice, doesn't matter.
The first thing I think you got to do is you got to find, in Florida, we have to designate an inventory attorney, somebody to take over the practice if something happens to you, to basically dismantle the practice. And that's more so an important thing to do, especially if your spouse is not an attorney, right? So somebody who can come in and really take care of those responsibilities for you. The insurance piece is so important. I can't underestimate the importance of the insurance piece.
Okay.
I would suggest that everybody takes a marker, go to the mirror in your bathroom, and put down 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. I cannot tell you how many times that has come into play when I've worked with firms and they have thanked me for pushing them to plan well in advance. Listen to Jonathan's story. Listen to Ed's story. Listen to the founder that didn't wake up in my story. Literally, the firm panicked because they didn't start the process. So start the process, keep those 5 Ps in mind, and move forward one step at a time, and you can get there.
All right. Jonathan?
Yeah. So, I piggyback on sort of the thing Ed said early on about mindset. I would say take a morning, take an hour, put your phone away, go somewhere and just sit with your thoughts and imagine sort of what's on the other side of the practice, whether it's, suddenly or at the end when, where do you want to be? Because oftentimes I feel like you need to know what's on the other side and you need a date to be working backwards from. And many lawyers just say 2 more years, 2 more years. They say that for 20 years straight.
Right.
I mean, you can keep going if you want to, but pick a date, work back from that, and then you can help start planning. You don't ever actually have to do it, but you've at least got the plan in place. So pick a date.
So Daniel, I have a question personal to me because I know I'm a challenging client sometimes with this stuff. But when we get on our calls, should there be a set agenda that I don't allow you to let me derail you with you're like, okay, Tom, we're going to do the out number today. We're going to spend an hour. I'm going to ask you a lot of financial questions. You're going to send me a net worth statement. You're going to send me your income and expense statement. And we're going to determine the out number. Because when I heard that, I was like, and the guy said in the YouTube video I watched that most of the people he works with, they already passed their out number and didn't even realize it, right? Like, so it seems like a pretty common thing for CEOs and for business owners to do. And so, I think for especially a lot of entrepreneurial attorneys, they have this broken brain, ADD, broken thing in them, right? No offense, guys, because all of us own our own firms, but we kind of know it's true. Is there a way to reel that in so we can just get like here is your 2-year plan if you show up for your calls or, because I know you got this done for a mutual acquaintance for us. And that I think Ed might even know, I won't mention the name, but it was like lightning fast. 6 months later, she was sitting on a gajillion-dollar deal. And I was like, this girl's a genius. How I can't get this working? Like, she was a genius. So how did you get it done in 6 months? And what is the time frame if people are disciplined about it?
Well, if we were all disciplined, Tom, and stuck to the agenda, Tom, we probably could actually get the entire process done in 4 to 6 months, as I did with this other attorney we're not going to name. That particular attorney agreed to stick to the agenda we had for each of our sessions. And it's amazing how much I learned from that attorney as we went through there. And yes, they did hit and exceed each of their benchmarks because they stuck to the agenda that we put together, and we could walk through the roadmap one step at a time, Tom.
So I want to say one thing in my defense. I don't have a copy of that agenda, but you need to drop it in Google Drive and share it with me. And I will stick to it. I'll be disciplined. All right. Because it's super important. And I'm an idiot because I'm talking about this stuff. So I'm even worse than the other lawyers who don't plan at all. I know I got to do it, and I need to be disciplined about it. Like, I want it to be done by the end of this year. Okay, so now I've created accountability. We'll land the plane on this episode. The next episode. Go ahead. Sorry.
Let me say
John.
one thing first. So, Tom, my sense is that your firm is pretty well run, so you can do it in 4 to 6 months. There are a lot of people out there. I don't want to give the false impression out there. I know Ed and I have talked about this before, that it's going to take a lot longer. And especially, we've had people come to us that are like, look, I've got terminal illness. I need this done in 4 months. And it's, if they're not ready, it's hard to get it done. And so, but like, your firm is well run, you could get it done for sure. But, other people who perhaps don't have as organized of a firm probably take longer.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would 100% say, like, I've done a lot of some exercises. I'm sure Daniel has 50 of them, but or more. But I've done some of those exercises, and I went back and I was like, this was enlightening the way you took me through it, where he was going seat by seat and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think, look, if anybody's listening to this that is running their own thing, whether it's beginning, middle, or God forbid, end stages, these people know what they're talking about. Those stories are real. So don't sleep on them. Thank you for doing this, guys. Yeah.
Just real quickly, pick up on Jonathan's point. You can put a succession plan in place much quicker than you can execute the plan. Creating the plan, getting it documented, you can do in a few months. Anybody can, regardless of how messed up a firm might be or how smoothly it's run. It's the execution of that plan, the implementation, that could take many, many years, depending on how you lay it out.
Great point, Daniel. Thank you.
Right. All right, so we're going to land this plane. The next episode, just to give everybody a little bit of teaser that's listening to this, you got to tune in, is recognizing the early warning signs. They're talking about different types of firms, and you do have sophisticated kind of real run like a business firms, and then you got the other types of firms. And I'll start off with an example that I heard of recently that's for sale, but you got to tune in next time for that. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Tonalaw. Attorneys, are you looking for a trusted partner for your New York personal injury referrals? Since 2001, Tonalaw has been the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At Tonalaw, we pay legal fee participation to referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the Tonalaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONALAW or visit us at tonalaw.com.